When Malcolm Alexander was exonerated after 40 years in Angola, he was given this dog. He named her Innocence. Malcolm Alexander has proven his innocence with the help of DNA evidence that showed he didn't commit a rape.
Well, the DNA didn't say who it was, but it said who it wasn't, and that was the most important part to me.
But the Attorney General's office is still trying to stop Alexander from receiving $40,000 a year in compensation, like the law allows.
The intent of your law is if someone is cleared by DNA evidence, they should receive this money.
Well, exactly. DNA obviously is one of those clear standards that proves that I'm not the person. I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't there. I didn't play some other role in the crime. Then if that's the case, then you obviously don't belong in prison and you should be compensated.
While Alexander still waits, a state Supreme Court decision in Wilbur Jones' case means he will finally start receiving his money.
I was rejoiced. I was so happy. The burden was lifted off of me. And I almost like a shed tear. And it's sorry it took so long.
6 years as a free man, the state tried to prevent him from receiving money the law says he's owed. That move was recently struck down when just this month the Louisiana Supreme Court said Landry's office had a faulty argument and awarded Wilbur Jones compensation. Now married, Jones hopes the money will buy he and his wife a house, but even that can't heal the lasting memories of being wrongfully locked up most of his life.
I could have got the death penalty, but they found me guilty without capital punishment. By the grace of God, they did.
We're following breaking news this morning as the Marathon Petroleum plant in Garyville is on fire.
And as you see, this is a large fire there at one of the largest refineries in America, Garyville in St. John Parish, basically in that stretch of petrochemical plants between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. The company says that this refinery has a capacity to refine 596,000 barrels of crude per day. We do not know what portion of the refinery is impacted. We don't have anything on the injuries or evacuations. We do have crews on the way to the scene and hope to have more information from emergency managers.
Let's get back to that breaking news that we told you about at the top of the hour. You can see here the large plume of smoke burning there in St. John Parish near Garyville at the Marathon Petroleum plant there. We got word of this just about 20 minutes ago or so. You can see just that huge plume of smoke billowing up into the St. John Parish sky. We have tried to reach out to parish officials, including the parish president, the parish spokesperson. They have not given us any comment on this incredibly huge fire that is burning right now.
Go back to our breaking story about a fire at the Marathon plant in Garyville. We would like to bring you more information, but we are frankly getting almost nothing from officials in St. John Parish. In the meantime, as the fire continues, we're joined by Michael Vossaw, who is part of our digital team here at Fox 8. You know, we're seeing these images, which I'm sure you've seen, but in the last 15, 20 minutes of your presence there, what can you tell us about how large this fire is?
Nothing about it has changed. It's billowing very, very rapidly.
We're seeing those fireballs, and again, we're at a really low vantage point from where we are.
It's a 2-mile radius around that plant, and as Josh was describing, there's just a huge smoke plume coming out of there. Plant officials put out a statement saying they have it under control. It does not appear to be under control at this point.
I have issued an emergency declaration and a mandatory evacuation for all residents within a 2-mile radius.
St. John Parish authorities say they put out a notice on social media 15 minutes after they were notified of the explosion at the Marathon plant. Now, plant officials say a naphtha material used in the transport of oil products was inside a containment dike at the plant and somehow ignited after it began leaking.
We got moved back about an hour or so ago, and you can still see that plume of smoke from where we are here right now off of Airline Drive. And we've been speaking to a lot of members of the community, and I can tell you that the concern right now is incredibly high.
I was inside, and I was doing some work in the kitchen, and I heard a noise, and I looked. And then I started smelling, my nose was burning a little, my chest, I have asthma. I was taking the treatment at the moment. And when we came outside, we seen the smoke, and then I heard sirens in the neighborhood saying evacuate. And we put on the TV, and we saw on the breaking news that something was burning.
Wilma Subra is a chemist, a MacArthur Fellow, and an environmental activist who has studied air quality concerns near this plant. She says the chemicals can cause acute and immediate reactions to people who inhale the toxins within the smoke, and says even sheltering in place likely is not sufficient to protect from those impacts. She says if you live nearby, you should have already left, and says the parish should have ensured the hundreds of people who do live in that area were notified immediately after the fire erupted.
So even though the company is saying the fire is contained on the site, the emissions are migrating off the site, and those people, as well as the ones a little further away, were immediately impacted.
For over a year, we've reported on a religious nonprofit from Tennessee that owns 3 apartment complexes in and around New Orleans. Global Ministries Foundation never paid taxes in Louisiana because the law said it didn't have to. Its CEO, an ordained minister.
Welcome to all of our guests and visitors today.
Dr. Richard Hamlet travels the world preaching, but in the New Orleans area, this is how his tenants are living.
They got water running here. They took all this mold, all this water. I got to sleep way over there where it's dry at.
And I'm constantly calling them, emailing them, and everything, and they're not doing anything. Well, they said that they were putting this up temporarily, and they were coming back to fix it, and this has been weeks and a Sunday.
Mold right here, mold throughout my hallway. I have really bad termites in my room.
Those are termites?
Yes, those are termites.
No.
At least y'all came. I'm kind of glad y'all did because people need to see this.
14-year-old Nyasia Clay found Fox 8's email address online and reached out herself because she says she didn't know where else to turn.
My sisters are getting sick. My mama, she's doing a lot, but there's not much you can do.
Elected leaders shocked at what they saw in our reports.
I obviously had an up-close and personal look, Meg, after you and Fox 8 did a series of stories. I was heartbroken. I was livid.
And when some of them visited the complexes for themselves.
And how long has it been like this?
Since 2019.
Oh my gosh.
At the end of the day, they're slumlords. They are not doing right by residents, and they do not deserve public money.
Hughes and Moreno took their fight to the state capitol.
All citizens, Mr. Chairman, in this state deserve a quality place to live. And so what this bill does, it simply says that if you are a bad actor, you should not be rewarded by the taxpayers of Louisiana.
While the bill made its way through the legislature, we followed tenants and the struggles they faced every step of the way, including Sierra Dobard, who says she was nearly evicted simply for reaching out to the Fox 8 defenders, pushing for better living conditions at the Willows in New Orleans East.
I mean, I don't understand why they're coming after us. I'm just trying to change things around and trying to make a difference.
Finally, after weeks of discussion at the state capitol in Baton Rouge,
I remember seeing some of the most deplorable conditions that I've ever seen in 30 years broadcast on our news in the greater New Orleans area. You brought this bill because of those poor people who had no recourse to the problems they were suffering from.
House Bill 46 passed both chambers.
79 yeas and 19 nays, and the bill is finally passed.
The proposed amendment change was placed on the October ballot. Then, on election night, Louisiana voters overwhelmingly approved the measure.
Over 2/3 of our residents voted to deny property tax exemptions to any nonprofit that owns severely blighted property throughout the city. We believe that this is, again, a step in the right direction.
You know, you brought something to our attention, and Jason and I were able to team up to create this policy and ultimately get a constitutional amendment passed. That's a really big deal. And I have to say thank you. Both Jason and I say thank you to you, Meg, and Fox 8, the whole Fox 8 Defenders team, for really highlighting this issue.
This stuff has taken over my daughter and everything that she ever knew. She only did a little bit at a time, maybe parties and stuff like that, and it grew to be a very big problem, a genuine addiction.
It's because people get a euphoric high. That's why they do it. There have been many, many cases in emergency rooms and hospitals of people presenting with nerve damage, with blood diseases, with psychosis, mania.
There can be all kind of nervous damage, cerebral damage, cardiovascular implications, long-term implications.
This is $1,800 worth of product right here in a 3-week time.
You could easily spend, a couple $1,000s. Yeah, a month. Yeah, easily.
This man, who's currently battling an addiction to nitrous, agreed to speak candidly with us about the gas anonymously.
I know users that'll spend $1,000 in a day.
He says he's used nitrous oxide recreationally for more than a decade, but he says it's only recently that his abuse of the gas became a problem when nitrous tanks like these showed up in New Orleans neighborhood shops.
You're buying it at the store, so you don't have that kind of shame if you're buying other drugs.
If the nitrous oxide is intended to be used as a propellant in food preparation, like when making whipped cream.
That's just it's a way to bypass the law.
This stuff is all made for kids to inhale.
Experts fear that puts a new generation on a potentially deadly path. In 2016, Dr. Garicani co-authored a review in the American Journal on Addictions, finding only about 100 case reports on deaths linked to nitrous oxide.
Since then, there have been hundreds of other cases added to the literature. This is booming. The level of awareness about this has gone up, but so has the frequency of use, I imagine. So I think this is approaching a crisis at this juncture, and I think there has to be measures taken to regulate the access to the gas.
While nearly every tank we saw has a warning against inhaling the gas somewhere on the tank, addicts say that's just a thread through a loophole in the law.
I don't really know what you could even do with these other than suck them down.
It's incredibly dangerous, and yes, they should regulate it, and I think it should be done on a federal level.
Campbell is committed to encouraging lawmakers to do just that. First, by highlighting his family's struggles.
I don't know what I'm going to do. That's why I'm relying on the news, and I'm relying on the state or Jefferson Parish or anybody to take this junk off the street.
Campbell feels once people understand the real threat of nitrous, regulations may help save someone else's daughter in the future. But without any promise for a change in law, he feels it allows businesses to keep supplying a high.
I worry about her, every minute of the day. I feel like I'm going to lose her every day. I want my daughter to grow up and live a good life and have a family, but she's running herself in the ground.
The Sewerage and Water Board says it takes tests monthly across the city at homes and businesses to ensure the water is safe to drink. On March 6, 2023, Lakeithia Ross documented she tested the water at 1314 Napoleon Avenue. Here's a log of the GPS from her vehicle that day. It never came close to that location.
And so this is very, very serious. Potentially people could be endangered by this and even sickened or die.
We found false testing reports are not isolated to just Lakeithia Ross. June 28th of this year, Sewerage and Water Board employee Louis Pierre said he visited 12 testing sites across the city, alleging he took samples. But our analysis of Sewerage and Water Board GPS records show his vehicle never made it to half of those testing sites. The testing sites are in red. The GPS log from the day is in blue. So each red dot should have a blue dot close by. The ones that don't were skipped that day. The vehicle clearly didn't stop at 6 of the sites Pierre claimed to test the water. Here's another employee, Percy Randall. May 26, 2023, Randall said he tested the water at 3260 Jack Wyman Road at 8:25 a.m., but a review of his GPS records show he didn't stop at the site when he claimed to take the test. Blue dots show GPS data between 8 and 9 a.m. that day. The red dot shows where he claimed to test at Jack Wyman Road.
Even if it's one, it's outrageous. What's especially concerning here is that multiple people appear to be involved in this.
In the past, similar findings have led to prosecution for some inspectors. In 2014, a Louisiana State Police investigation found 2 St. John Parish employees skip gathering water samples from 2 locations. The investigation used GPS data. Both employees were charged and prosecuted. Edwards says New Orleans' crumbling infrastructure makes testing the water especially important.
In an older system full of leaks, this can be life or death.
The Sewerage and Water Board says it plans to bring our findings to the State Department of Health, but couldn't say if law enforcement officials would be notified.
The GPS data doesn't match what is alleged in testing in some cases. To you, is that clear that these sites were skipped?
I don't think there's really any other logical explanation. So yes, unfortunately, it looks like in those instances that we were provided with, that appears to be the case.
Steve Nelson oversees water purification for the Sewerage and Water Board. After reviewing our findings, the Sewerage and Water Board removed Louis Pierre from any duties related to public health and safety and says he could face further discipline. He says 2 other employees mentioned in this story, Lakeithia Ross and Percy Randall, no longer work for the Sewerage and Water Board. Ross was terminated in May. Randall resigned in August.
How disturbing is this?
Anytime you have records or samples in particular that are not reliable, it's a major challenge. And so we've taken it very seriously, and I believe we have measures in place to prevent this from happening in the future.
We're getting a look at some video here where you can see the 18-wheeler on fire. Appears to be multiple vehicles on fire. Is there any additional information you can update us with right now?
Yes, southbound and northbound, there appear to be about 25 accidents combined, 25 accidents.
Pretty scary situation for a lot of drivers this morning. We are getting some more pictures in this I-55 pileup. You can see from the screen, these pictures were sent in via Twitter by Christopher Tussa. He says his wife was stuck in this pileup. She is okay, but again, I-55 closed in both directions. All of this just south of Hammond. As Rob mentioned, we know at least 2 people have died in this, possibly more.
Fog and smoke causing the dangerous conditions. Fox 8's Chris Welty is in St. John Parish, and Rob Masson is on the way to that scene. Also happening now, fire crews get access to the interstate using a ladder from the fire truck. Firefighters are near a tanker that caught fire. The more than 24 wrecks stranded more than 100 people this morning. Some of them just left standing on the interstate with no way to get off.
What can you tell us about this crash?
Yeah, so obviously this morning we have quite a scene out here. It's a very large scale situation. We have many crashes and many vehicles involved in those crashes. This was a result of the fog, the heavy fog and smoke from the wildfires this morning. Combined, obviously had poor visibility, and we still are actually dealing with poor visibility on the spillway, which is why that is closed still.
Off in the distance, you can see the top of the Manchac Bridge and just a pile of cars and vehicles and emergency vehicles up there as they try and unsort this mess up here. Dozens of vehicles involved in these accidents, a big fire as well.
Hammond Fire Department, they have a ladder truck right here, and they've been using that to get onto the elevated portion of I-55.
There's a vehicle in the water here in Manchac Pass, and if you look up on the overpass, you could see probably about a dozen vehicles that were fully involved in this accident.
Minutes after the fiery fatal crash on I-55, cell phone video captures intense flames and the sounds of a horn stuck.
I've never seen a crash like this. I mean, I've traveled in South Louisiana for quite some time, so I've seen thick fog. But the pocket of fog we saw coming over the Manchac Bridge, I mean, it was like something you would see in the Central Valley of California, the Thule fog. You just couldn't see in front of you. And luckily I had just happened to look down and saw that GPS. Otherwise, I probably would have, hit that extra 60, 70 miles an hour.
At least one vehicle was pushed over the railing into Lake Maurepas.
We did have one vehicle that went over the railing. That driver was able to get out of that vehicle.
7 people were killed in this massive crash, and state police say that number could continue to grow as crews continue to push into the wreckage site. They were delayed in part by a tanker which was carrying hazardous material. That material has since been offloaded.
At this point, we have 7 confirmed fatalities.
Spanning a mile along I-55 between Rudock and Manchac, the crash scene contains multiple different wrecks, shutting down the interstate in both directions.
Next thing you know, you hear the impacts, and then you glance out to my left, and you see the cars running into each other, and the 18-wheelers just barreling into the scene. It continued. The impacts continued.
We just got new video taken a few moments ago from our Fox 8 drone showing the aftermath of that massive pileup
involving 158 cars. You can see from this angle, the roadway is just charred. You can also see that crews are still working to pick up pieces, remove vehicles that are still there on the scene 24 hours after this massive crash happened yesterday morning.
This is a really revealing look at the area there that was just next to impossible to get to for those first responders in the moments following the crash. And you can see all of that debris on the side as well. Just a lot of work that those crews are going to have to get through today. Obviously, the timetable for when this reopens still unclear, as they have to continue to check to see what the stability is of the bridge after that fire burned for so long.
Right now, the coroner van you can see right behind me is leaving the scene, and that's because they just about 2 minutes ago brought out the body of one of the juveniles, a toddler.
Breaking news, brand new video shows the moment a house catches on fire with 2 toddlers and a child inside.
Take a look at this. New images of the devastating fire as it starts on America Street in New Orleans East. We've been learning new details this morning as we cover the fatal house fire. The NOPD says it's investigating one of the deaths as a homicide. Josh Robertson's live at the scene. Josh.
When firefighters first arrived a little after midnight this morning, we're told, neighbors have told me that they immediately started yelling at firefighters saying there are kids inside, there are kids inside. According to the fire department, when they first got into the home, they found 2 of the children very close to the front door. One of them, we're told, was just feet away from the front door. They found both of them unresponsive. The first 2 children, they got them to the hospital, but we're told they later died from their injuries. But a third child, a toddler, was also found further back in the home after the fire was put out. Again, we did speak to a mother here this morning, and here's what she had to say.
When I got to my hall, I can see the house just engulfed in flames. The firemen pulled up and we just kept screaming, there's kids in there, there's 3 kids, get the babies out of the house. She kept saying they still have a little girl in there, y'all didn't pull the little girl out.
New information this hour about the house fire that has killed 3 children overnight. The NOPD says that their mother called 911 saying the father intended to burn down the house.
Here's an image of the house on America Street engulfed in flames early this morning.
Joseph, turn yourself in. That's what you best do. Turn yourself in, Joseph. And that ain't no lie. Turn yourself in. Call me. Turn yourself in.
Today at noon on Fox 8, a grandfather of 3 children killed in a fire pleads with his son to surrender to police. That fire in New Orleans East killed 2 boys, ages 8 and 3, and a 5-year-old girl. Andres Fuentes is live on America Street in the Plum Orchard neighborhood. Andres.
Liz, you know, I've been here all morning long and talking to a lot of the family members that have come by, and they said the same thing. This is the worst day of their lives, and neighbors tell me the same thing as well. This is a traumatic day for them. They're never, ever going to see the 3 children that used to play right here on this front lawn.
Now the father of those children under arrest.
Chief Ann Kirkpatrick was flanked by local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, by city partners, to talk about the horrific nature of this fire that took the lives of 3 young children. Kirkpatrick confirmed the arrest of the children's father for the crime, Joseph Washington. Among the charges Washington will face, 3 counts of second-degree murder, 3 counts of second-degree child cruelty, and 1 count of aggravated arson. NOPD's child abuse unit was also involved in working this case and developing Washington as a suspect. His Dodge Charger was found partially submerged in the river. U.S. Marshals tell us that after they took Washington into custody, after the vehicle that he was riding in stopped, and he tried to flee by jumping off of a highway overpass.
Our investigation of 1,000 hours of video revealed a mayor who misses meetings and a security detail who could be improperly earning taxpayer dollars.
Must be nice.
Tonight, we bring you our series that launched 2 separate investigations.
So, Mr. Zurich, thank you for being here. Kind of freaks me out to see you.
A series of stories the mayor tried to label as unethical.
It was fair, balanced. It raised a lot of serious questions as to exactly what was going on during the workday.
Inconsistent timesheets, a questionable relationship, improper payments, fancy hotel rooms, and dinner with Brad Pitt.
Thank you very much,
It's a
sir.
public
Thank
records
you.
request. We
Thank
got the
you,
video
sir.
via public
And
records request.
we know, and thank you very much.
Here's Lee Surik with Outside the Office.
A tip that the mayor was utilizing the city-owned Upper Puntaba apartment for personal use led us to comb through more than 1,000 hours of video from a public security camera just outside the apartment. All of this sets the stage for our months-long investigation into New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell. That footage, along with hundreds of pages of public records, revealed a mayor who may be in violation of city policy and state law, spending hours of the workday inside the apartment with a member of her security detail, doing little work for the city. All of this compiled and analyzed by our team that found a mayor spending time outside the office. August 2nd of this year, 8:03 in the morning, Mayor LaToya Cantrell arrived at the city-owned Upper Puntaba apartment. In the car with her, security detail NOPD officer Jeffrey Vappy. He walks her to the door and leaves. But minutes later, Vappy entered this door that leads to the apartment, and for 5 hours and 40 minutes of his workday, Vappy stayed inside that door. A public records request shows between 10 and 6 that day, the mayor didn't make or take one work call on her cell phones, and for those 8 hours only responded to 2 emails. One at 10:56 a.m., 2 sentences, asking that a complaint about a mechanical permit be forwarded to the correct person, and one at 2:06 p.m., 2 sentences again, to someone with the Vieux Carré Commission. Much of the workday, an NOPD officer in charge of protecting the mayor was paid to spend nearly 6 hours of his workday inside a city-owned apartment building with Mayor Cantrell.
Is it fair for us to ask questions about this?
It's fair to ask questions because this is a taxpayer-owned property, and these are employees paid by the taxpayers.
You see right there, 2 vehicles at least stalled out in that water. Our photographer says that nobody was in those cars when he arrived moments ago.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, go on in, Aiden. You can see the towels there on the ground. How much water do you think you got inside the house this morning?
About 1.5 inches up to the baseboard, so just a mess, just an inconvenience.
Sewage and Water Board saying they have lost power to multiple turbines this morning. I believe it was 12 at last count. Now, right now, you're looking at Calhoun Street. That is from Steve Wolfram, our chief photographer here with Fox 8. He's walking right now along Calhoun. It's also near Claiborne, also kind of near Napoleon, but I know kind of in that uptown area. But he's walking on Calhoun, very close to the Tulane campus and also Yulman Stadium, which, you know, there's an AAC championship game happening at Yulman Stadium at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So we will see how this is going to impact that game in terms of just getting people to the stadium if they're able to get there. Another reminder, too, if you are driving and you're out and about, just know that this flooding on these streets, especially in a city like New Orleans, which does not have a lot of off-street parking, be very careful. First of all, you shouldn't drive through floodwaters at all, but if you are going to drive through short floodwaters, and this is in Lakeview, just FYI, that we're looking at an area that is impacted by the Sewage and Water Board losing power to some of their turbines, Lakeview being impacted. Now you see that vehicle driving right there, pushing that water. Luckily, there are no homes or no vehicles around. You want to be very careful when driving because, as we've seen already, residents are waking up to seeing their vehicles either flooded out or stalled out in some cases, which we've seen.
I was scared.
Why were you scared?
I won't make it.
In June, doctors at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis painstakingly removed Ava's stomach and more than 120 lymph nodes in a 7-hour surgery, fighting to rid her small body of the cancer growing inside it. Unfortunately, it's a cancer her family is all too familiar with.
Mine was stage 3. It was throughout the whole stomach.
I wasn't scared because I feel like they wouldn't remove my stomach if I couldn't live without it. So, I don't know, I wasn't scared about that part. Scared for surgery though.
Both Ava's dad, Corey, and her older sister, Zoe, also had diffused gastric cancer. It's hereditary, caused by the CDH1 gene. The cancer detected after Zoe and Corey experienced stomach pain and cramping. Corey and Zoe both had their stomachs removed within the last 2 years. Doctors say the surgery involves attaching the esophagus to the small intestine to allow small portions of food to be eaten and digested. But doctors tell Ava her body is cancer-free. Zoe and Corey also recently got clean bills of health. It's a unique bond they now share. 3 cancer survivors living without stomachs in their family of 4. Heather Holly says this test of faith has only made them stronger.
You always want to hug, so she's a hugger. That's what a lot of people ask us. Do you think that this would have torn you apart? And I'm like, no. If anything, we don't want to be without each other.
That's a live look right now. Omaha, Nebraska, and the LSU Tigers national championships in baseball. 18-4 the final. The game just ending moments ago.
You can see reaction right now. It looks like that's Kate Belosso's family.
Hey, listen, this is way different than I was imagining it was going to end. But I tell you what, with 24 hits on the board, these boys come out swinging. It was pressure all night long. What a great ending to a storybook career for Kate and Gavin. Some of these great guys. I mean, I'm so happy for these boys right now. Bringing home number 7 to Baton Rouge, baby.
But as a father, how does it feel right here to know that your boy was throwing strikes tonight?
I'm just incredibly proud. I mean, all these guys work so hard, and to go out there and be doing what they love on a stage like this, it just fills my heart, man. Just fills my heart.
We are joined now by New Orleans native Kate Beloso, 2023 national champion. Kate, how does it feel?
It's hard to put in words, man. This is special, and I'm so happy. Scott literally hasn't even said it yet. We just keep smiling and hugging and telling everybody how much we love it, but it's awesome.
Well, for the second time this spring, Confetti Falls. Confetti Falls for LSU, a second national championship in just a matter of months. First it was LSU women's basketball in Kim Mulkey's second year, and now Jay Johnson in only his second season as the LSU head coach. And of course, got to get his moment with the national championship trophy. LSU would not be here without the work and performances of Paul Skeens, the best pitcher in college baseball this season.
I mean, this journey has been absolutely incredible. This is what we came here for. This is why everything happened. This is unbelievable.
Coach Mulkey, you're here in Omaha. You brought a national championship to LSU as well in your second year. What's it like to watch Jay Johnson bring a national championship to Baton Rouge?
I'm just so happy for Jay. I'm happy for the players.
It means the world to me. This is what I've been wanting to do since I was a freshman, and to finally say that I'm a national champion, it's a really good feeling. You know, it's a tough decision out of high school to pull myself out, and now that I'm here, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah, you came to LSU wanting to bring a national championship to this program, knowing that you've delivered on that in your last season here at LSU. What does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like there was just one box that wasn't checked off, and it was a national championship. And now that I'm here, and to say that I'm a national champion, I can't, like I said, I can't put words to it. It's the greatest feeling in the world. I feel like it's the best way to cap off my career here.
We just ran from the stadium to Rocco's, and you guys are partying?
You think they're taking advantage of people?
I felt like they did. I felt like he did.
Here's video from earlier this year. Fenton police pulled Parker over on her way back from a nearby casino. To contest the ticket, she drove all the way back to Fenton and showed up to what's known as Mayor's Court.
So the court's closed tonight, they told you?
Yeah, they told me. I drove all the way down here for nothing.
Fenton holds Mayor's Court once a month, but back in August when Parker showed up, court had been canceled. The fines and fees that run through Mayor's Court essentially run the town. In the last year reviewed by auditors, more than 90% of the village of Fenton's revenue, $1.3 million, was collected from fines and fees, the vast majority from traffic tickets.
90+% of their town budget, village budget, is from tickets from people like you.
So of course they're gonna give people tickets.
Because what?
They get revenue from it. And it's not fair.
And if you're someone like Teresa Parker who thinks she was wrongfully ticketed, you need to convince this person you're innocent. Eddie Alford, the mayor of Fenton, who is also the courtroom judge.
Mr. Mayor, you told us you would do an interview with us, though, Mr. Mayor.
Talk to the attorney.
You told me on the phone that you would do an interview with me, sir.
Right here, talk to the attorney.
He told us on the phone that he would do an interview with us.
If he doesn't want to do an interview, he doesn't want to do an interview.
Alfred is the elected mayor of Fenton, a small village of just 226 residents. Instead of having a traffic or municipal court, the law allows Fenton to have mayor's court, where the mayor acts as judge, jury, and even appoints his own prosecutor.
I mean, you have the mayor as the decision maker, essentially the judge. And the results of those decisions, which are minor municipal offenses only, but they're criminal in nature, and they result in the assessment of fines that go to the city, of which the mayor is the chief administrative officer. The conflict of interest is so patently obvious, not to mention the fact that the mayor doesn't have to be a lawyer.
A 1972 United States Supreme Court ruling says defendants' rights are violated if a mayor sits on the bench, is responsible for town finances, and if the court accounts for a substantial share of the town's revenue. So how much is substantial? A court in Ohio says 10%. The Louisiana Judicial College uses that same threshold. Again, Fenton makes more than 90% of its annual revenue from court.
This is a perfect example of why it's unfair. And exactly why they have it. This is a revenue generating mechanism. It's not about justice. It's not about efficiency. It's not about fairness. It's about making money.
North Shore Humane Society houses dogs year-round, heartbreakingly lonesome pets, seemingly desperate for a home and a family.
And we do everything we can to get them adopted, but sometimes it doesn't happen.
So volunteers spend time with the pups, walks, socializing, and sometimes an overnight visit.
He was in the shelter for 6 months. I said, wow, we hit the jackpot.
Maria Opp's lotto ticket was Kimber, a stray looked over until Ops and her husband, Lawrence, who goes by Otter, started volunteering at the shelter.
They just bonded very quickly.
It was a bond Maria was desperate to see in her husband, a 28-year Navy veteran forced into early retirement.
I was withdrawing from my last deployment to Iraq and Syria in 2018. I had started having mood issues, withdrawing from functions with family.
These last couple of years has been tough. You know, he struggles with his disabilities, but also his depression and his PTSD.
One of the things that we are really trying hard to do is stem the tide of losing our men and women from service who come home, right? And they're different than they left.
I had gotten dizzy a couple times, and he came into the picture and got really close to me and just started bracing me as I wobbled. And one of the ladies comes out and says, you know, you can take the dogs home as a volunteer for the weekend.
I knew. I knew if I signed him out, he was not coming back to the shelter, so I knew that.
He picked me. I'd like to say I picked him from the Humane Society, but he shopped for the right owner.
Ambitious to take the next step, formally certifying Kimber as a service animal, they enlisted Evan Stewart, owner of K-Pro Canine. He drew parallels from Otter and Kimber's story to his own journey with his dog Phantom.
Good boy. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and Phantom really helps me thrive in our communities without the worries that come with my PTSD specifically.
Kimber just changed his life. He's changed our lives.
Over the course of the year, his prescription meds dwindled from 12 to just 4. It appeared Kimber was just what Otter's doctor ordered.
He said Kimber was the best medicine that he couldn't prescribe a better medication.
It hit me that there was an opportunity to take animals that are in the shelter, partner with somebody like K-Pro, and turn them into service dogs.
Inspired by these two, Bernier and Stewart created the Shelter to Service program. Miss B is the first graduate of the program. Paired with Navy veteran Amy Weiser just weeks ago, the program is already benefiting the community and clearing space to rescue more animals.
You are not only saving a dog's life in this particular situation with our Shelter to Service program, but you are most often at least enabling a life to thrive in a human being, if not saving their life for sure.
With Kimber, he had somebody else. You know, Kimber relied on him. They relied on each other. And I believe they saved each other.